The UK has become the first country in Europe and the fifth in the world to record more than 50,000 deaths because of coronavirus. The Prime Minister said every death was a tragedy and he warned that Britain was not out of the woods yet. Today, another 595 deaths have been reported, all people who have died within 28 days of a positive COVID-19 test. The death toll now stands at 50,365. According to the Office for National Statistics, 4/5 of the deaths registered in England and Wales were people over the age of 75. Our health correspondent Catherine Burns has been speaking to some of those who have lost loved ones in the second wave of this pandemic.
Peter Davies and Steve Horsfall lived less than 40 miles from each other and died 11 days apart, both in the second wave of coronavirus.
That's been the hardest thing, is not being able to hug people.
My dad was 79, but I do believe he had a lot of years left.
Peter was a family man. He died the week before his 52nd wedding anniversary. He was a brilliant dad who also doted on his grandchildren. He was overweight but healthy until he went into hospital with a water infection.
He wasn't an ill man, he wasn't a frail man. He died purely of COVID. If COVID didn't exist, my dad would still be here.
Steve was a teacher, but that barely begins to sum him up. He was in a rock tribute band, a photographer and a biker. Wherever he went on his bike, he'd take an ice cream selfie. He had asthma and type 2 diabetes, but didn't think he'd get COVID. At the end of September, though, he and his wife became sick at the same time.
It was awful because we were both so ill. His oxygen levels were quite low, enough to make us realise that he needed medical attention.
The last vision I kind of have of my dad before his last day was him in the back of an ambulance in a wheelchair. So, sorry, that's the last vision I have of him as being okay, really.
It's 6 weeks since Bev lost her dad, not even 5 for Sue. And now the UK has reached a grim milestone, the first in Europe to do so. 50,000 deaths.
Every death is a tragedy, and we mourn everybody who's gone, and our feelings are with their families and friends as well.
The government was slow at phase 1. They haven't learnt the lessons into phase 2, and we owe it to all of the families who are grieving to get on top of the virus.
These people are not numbers, they're not statistics, they're people that are loved and that love other people, and they're missed hugely.
Sue kept hoping and believing that Steve would be okay right until the end.
The shock came when I got a call on the early hours of the Friday morning to say that he'd developed a complication and that his heart had stopped. And the reason why his heart had stopped was a clot on his lung. And I knew they did everything they possibly could.
Bev and her mum were able to see her dad one last time in hospital wearing full PPE.
He was talking when we first went into the room. He said, "Where have you been?" And then started with very, very laboured breathing, which was just, just horrific to listen to that. My big, strong dad, as I saw him.
People used to say, "You only live once." And he always used to turn around and say, "You only die once." But you live life every day. And he says you've got to make the best of every day.
Sue Horsfall remembering her husband Steve. Our health editor Hugh Pym is with me now, and every story is absolutely heartbreaking. More than 50,000 deaths already in the UK, and we're being warned over and over again of the difficult winter ahead.
Yes, Sophie, tragic stories there. It seems like an age ago that a senior government advisor said back in March that anything below 20,000 deaths would be a good outcome. Now we're above 50,000. They cover all deaths within 28 days of a positive test, but there's a broader definition which looks at all death certificates with COVID listed as a cause. That's more than 61,000 deaths. So where does the UK stand in comparison with other countries? Well, we can look at some of the data in terms of deaths relative to population per 100,000 people. And of developed economies, Belgium has the highest at 119, followed by Spain and Brazil. And there's the UK at 75 per 100,000, ahead of the US and France, and quite a lot above Germany there for that comparison. It has to be said that all countries measure deaths in slightly different ways. We'll have to wait a bit longer for the excess deaths in total above averages in each of these countries to get a broader comparison. If you look at new admissions to hospitals and new cases on the graphs, those are flattening out a little bit, which may be a bit more positive. Deaths are a lagging indicator, reflecting infections 2 or 3 weeks ago. And Public Health England have said today this trend we've identified today will continue. And it'll be several weeks, they say, before current lockdown restrictions have any impact.
Hugh Pym, thank you.